Hello and welcome, or welcome back to another video where we are sort of just sketching slash doing some landscapes. So let's talk about it. I I do have one of my landscapes as my desktop wallpaper, and it doesn't look bad. It looked pretty good actually, compositionally speaking, and I like the texture with the brush strokes and whatnot. It looks great. When I started doing these versions of landscape, it was hard and a little bit rough, especially certain ones. And when I try to add colors, it just wasn't great. But I don't know. I feel like landscapes, there's sort of two important things when it comes to them, and that is one, having good brushes to make them, especially if you're planning to do these more rendered out styles rather than the ink style that I've done previously. It's tricky. A lot of people uses more of a chiseled head or like a flatter brush, while Medibrang's brush tends to be quite round in return. So, yeah. The attempts to rectify this would be to go in with a hard edge eraser tool to carve out shapes, but that's still something that I'm working on, and I think I will be working on for a while. The other thing would be composition. It could use some work. Some odd reason, I am notoriously bad at it, but hopefully I'll get better. Uh, I can do compositions perfectly fine when it's very simple, like these landscapes here, or when I am doing it traditionally, just because I do like these styles of landscapes with like pen and stuff, and it just feels a bit easier to come across for me. Well, when I do it digitally more rendered out, it just feels really awkward when I do it, and I'm like freaking out, I think, internally because I'm like, well, I don't really know color theory very well, and that's why we practice. But I think how to rectify this would be to definitely use references and sort of do thumbnails and whatnot to see what works out very well compositionally speaking. And the other thing that I think was very good to know would be to sort of like have your canvas or have a navigator that's really small, just because it's in the sketching phase and I didn't want to focus too much on one detail or anything like that. It's just easier to sketch landscapes when you are looking at it from a distance. So that's why my canvas might look really small on screen from time to time. It's just because I am looking at it from a distance. That way I can hopefully figure out my grayscales and whatnot. And it's alright. I mean, it's not the worst, and they do get better as I went on, and I actually like looked at references and whatnot. I do wish to get better at doing landscapes so then I can have a lot of cool backgrounds and rendering things out a lot better, but like it's just like it takes time obviously, and I'm for some odd reason I'm still not quite comfortable doing digital art. I think art is one of the things that you have to continuously keep at and like try and grow, and I just feel like digital art is just multiply that by 2 for me, because I just feel like I need to try. I just don't feel confident enough in doing digital art, especially expanding outside of character designs. But you know what? That's why we're here, is to sort of just push forwards and see what we can learn. With that being said, though, because we do push forward, I think some of my favorite landscapes was landscape, the last one for sure. I think number 3 was pretty cool, and number 1 was alright, especially for a first time, and it was pretty cool to add like a silhouette of a character that could be in there, just because of the dynamic, like having it a low angle shot looking up. It just felt really cool and whatnot, and it probably could be better if I added more contrast or didn't have such soft edges and whatnot. But we live and we learn, and I think it was just a good exercise for me, especially since it had been a while since I did any digital art. And yeah, I'm starting to try and get back into the swing of making art pieces again, but it's just been so busy. There's a lot going on with school, actually, and it has people worried. But essentially, a lot of my due dates have been pushed forward. So I have things that are due, like, instead of it being due like a month from now, it's due in like 2 weeks. So I've just been really busy trying to crank all of my assignments out and trying to get everything done for school so then I actually have time to draw and whatnot. But it's just sort of kind of difficult to do, especially when there is a lack of communication between me and my professors. I've been trying to get my instructors to critique stuff before the time I get to see them, because there's like periods where I don't get to see them for 4 or 3 days, and it's rough to get critiques and information about your projects and whatnot when you don't get to see them. So it's sort of just like this really sucky situation for all of the classmates and for myself, but it is what it is, and I'm just going to try and get through it. But yeah, I have 3 projects right now, and then I have to work on portfolio things. And I also feel like not just our printed portfolio, but I need to start thinking about my digital portfolio. And if you don't know from before, I have an existential crisis every time I do portfolio work, or like an identity crisis, because I feel like you're supposed to have like hints of your characters in your portfolio, and I just don't know what I am. So it's terrible. But I might just go with sweet, simple, and like sort of cutesy, cartoony in a way, and see how that goes. But I feel like lately I've been playing with a lot of fonts or type. Depends what lingo you want to use. But yeah, essentially I've been playing around with typefaces, and it's inspired me to sort of explore more typefaces and whatnot, especially when it comes to making my own branding identity for myself. And yeah, it's just been really busy. I mean, I know like I want certain vibes, but it's tricky because I'm like, oh, I love the elegant, really cool and aesthetically pleasing, or like the retro stuff that looks really funky, or also like clean, simple minimalism. So these things sort of all clashes, and I just need to figure out what I want to go with for my portfolio and what is going to express me to potential employers. And then on top of that, it's also like job hunting and whatnot for graphic design, because I don't really want to start off freelancing right off the bat. Freelancing, I feel like, isn't just difficult, but to build client, it can be a real hassle, and I feel like I need more experience, and I want to learn a lot more things as well from working in an actual company rather than just going off and doing freelancing right away. But yeah, there's also the fact that like I don't know where I'll be. The hopes within like the year or two is to move back to Ontario, because I want to be closer to my family. We're all getting older, and on top of that, I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of things, like birthdays, like great grandma's birthday. She's like turning 90 or 99 or something like that, and like I'm missing out on a whole bunch of things like Christmas gatherings and whatnot, and it sort of just kind of sucks. And then on top of that, I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of family things, because every time I go home for the break, I also want to visit friends as well. And hopefully when I move back to Ontario, it's like, yeah, I could visit friends and stuff like once a month or something. It'll be easier. And then spend the rest of my time working and with family. It's just, yeah, but it's just been really hard to sort of be out here and then feel like I'm missing out on a whole lot of things from back home, because I feel like my closest connections are back in Ontario, and that I haven't really developed any in Nova Scotia. And then on top of that, it's just I feel like there might be a lot more opportunities in Ontario than Nova Scotia, even though my school would say otherwise. But yeah, it's just I would like to be back home and around people that I care about before, I have regrets about it. Um, and as great as it was, like, to sort of move provinces and see what's out here, I just don't think I want to be living here for the rest of my life. So going back to Ontario also helps to save money. And then if I feel like moving provinces or countries or something, then it's like, yeah, I could save some money to go and do that rather than being out here and trying to sort everything out by myself. So yeah. But it's just really interesting, I guess, to sort of see how the future will be. And I try not to plan too far ahead because that's bitten me in the ass before. And I would rather not deal with that again. Because in the past, especially when I was in high school, I'd plan out my, like, 12 years in advance. I'll still be in school. I'll be going for like a doctorate, a PhD in forensic science, and then I'll go and do reconstruction of the body in forensics and stuff like that. And that, like, even just 4 years ahead is a bit too much to plan out for something like that. Like, saving money, it makes a bit more sense, but to plan out your career goals when you're 18 just doesn't seem like the wisest choice. And maybe if people are very determined, they can achieve that, but that's just not me, and it stressed me out a bit more. So yeah, I would rather not plan out my life in like 5 years in advance. Unless it's like a financial things and to have goals, but for something like, oh yeah, I want to settle down in Nova Scotia for 5 years. Like, that's just not ideal for me to think that way. So yeah. I mean, for some people, I imagine that would be a good thing, though. Um, but yeah, totally was sidetracked from landscapes. So using references is great. I used a rough reference for the last one. They do not look anything alike, but it sort of helped to figure out shading and how mountains can look with the lighting that I was going for. And then on top of that, to see how backgrounds, like how color scaling works and how the sky changes. Usually it's at the horizon, it's lighter, and then going upwards, it's darker. Of course, if you know these rules, you can break them when you get to that point, but there's other ones like things that are in the background becomes more like whited out or grayed out in a way. It's just not as saturated or detailed as things that are coming closer and closer to you, unless of course there's a lighting situation and that there's this harsh shadow really close to you, because then those things can just be silhouettes. But things in middle ground and like coming closer between your foreground and middle ground can be quite detailed and like a lot more colored than without. And I think in the future, I'll see about rendering actual landscape. But for now, I still want to work on composition and understanding how landscapes work, especially in grayscale, because it's just been really tricky to sort of figure out the composition and also to deal with the brushes. I feel like I need to start carving things out with a hard eraser instead of depending so much on the brushes, because the brushes have like a softness to them that sort of ruins it, I think, in a way. Clouds also a weakness when it comes to digital stuff. And yeah, there are points in the channel where I think about going just completely traditional and just to do everything like sketchbook spreads and whatnot. But I just want to keep pushing myself as well. So yeah, I also think it's really fun to do color as well, or to like practice colors, because that's also like a weak point for me since I don't do a whole lot of colorful things traditionally. So yeah, I will keep practicing my compositions and also the landscape, doing the foreground, background, and midground as well, and sort of figuring out how to draw clouds and stuff like that. And also how to use my tools, because I have Photoshop. It's not like I don't have Photoshop, but I also feel like if I could produce something really good with a beginner's tool, that I could sort of work my way up and like do amazing things still in more expensive mediums as well. Like this isn't quite like music where sometimes you just need a better instrument. This is well, if I could just draw very well, then the tools that I get shouldn't really matter a whole lot. But yeah, it's just also just to push me as well. So I mean, I don't mind. I like using Medibang, and I just think it's just polishing up a technique that would work for the program, and to sort of challenge myself with its limitation as well as just learning. So yeah, content a little bit boring, a little bit dry, but I hope you guys still learned something and you are inspired to sort of tackle things that you're weak at. And I also hope that, you guys are having a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye.